John Titor II.
Why is this still a thing? The overarching messages and themes associated with the Titor saga must be so compelling to some that they are unable to see all its glaring flaws. If you watch my previous video on Titor, you'll understand why I believe that the Titor myth is an alternate reality game. That particular ARG started off kind of fun and interesting, but this John Titor II, John Titor II, or John Titor II, however you say it, is obviously a hoax, which has attached itself like a parasite to the original host story. It's laughable, in fact. Apparently, all you need to do is embroider a few bogus patches and hold up those as physical evidence of your claims. And you too can call yourself an official John Titor.
I'm a Titor II.
Titor of the 177th.
Let's dive into this tiny little cesspool and see how filthy we can get.
What do we?
In 2016, a book was released, supposedly written by a person calling himself John Titor II, with the aid of the two actual authors, Bob Mitchell and Jason Quitt. Later that same year, the pair also released a book called Forbidden Knowledge, Revelations of a Multi-Dimensional Time Traveler. In this book, Quitt claims that he is the actual time traveler. This guy should have quit while he was ahead. Bob Mitchell even made an appearance on Coast to Coast with Gorgeous George, promoting this nonsense. As their narrative goes, the first John Titor, the one that started it all back in the late 90s, was actually not the real John Titor. His mission was to spread disinfo on Art Bell's show. This would in essence discredit the really real John Titor, now forced to call himself John Titor II. Titor II had new and improved prophecies to reveal after all. In addition to his book, Titor II also sent numerous letters to the U.S. heads of state and the United Nations. In the letter, Titor II requests a congressional hearing to discuss his interactions with off-world species. Among the recipients of this letter were Barack Obama, Paul Ryan, Donald Trump, Antonio Gutierrez, and Ban Ki-moon. His letter to Ban Ki-moon will now be read in full by the Leonard Nimoy AI.
Dear Mr. Ki-moon, the Earth has been visited by extraterrestrial species from the time that the Earth could sustain life. There is much to suggest that the Earth is an engineered planet and that the solar system we live in has been engineered by an intelligence far greater than we are now and possibly ever have been in the past. Some 17,000 years ago, the Anunnaki had successfully colonized this planet. That civilization, although type 5 on the Kardashev scale, failed. Currently, civilization on this planet is about to fail. Currently, Earth's civilization is a type 0 on that scale. Records of visiting extraterrestrial species are left everywhere on this planet in stone. Stones that cannot be lifted even today with available machinery.
Stone was a chosen media for leaving behind a record of their presence.
At the end of World War II, there was increased extraterrestrial and UFO activity. The armies of the United States and its allies were exhausted. Demonstration of extraterrestrial power to General Dwight D. Eisenhower demonstrated that these extraterrestrial species were superior to mankind on Earth. These extraterrestrial species could outfly anything available in the 1950s. These same spacecraft could submerge and then fly out of oceans and lakes. The United States of America signed cooperative agreements with extraterrestrial species. It is suspected that NATO allies signed similar agreements. These agreements gave unfettered access to the airspace of the Earth and set aside secure spaceports to be used by extraterrestrials. There are also mutual defense agreements in place in the event of war. There are over 80 extraterrestrial species that are known. The Anunnaki, the Greys, tall whites, and reptilians are known to the United States government. We have been invited to form an alliance or federation with them. 1. I encourage the United Nations to adopt a policy of befriending off-world species whenever possible. 2. We need to form an alliance with off-world species whenever possible. We have had cases of abductions of our species and animal mutilations from extraterrestrial species conducting research on our species. These activities by extraterrestrials
should not be condoned. Tissue samples must be requested through diplomatic channels. We have every right to expect that laws of our planet will be respected with adherence. There are two pressing issues that impact mankind's survival on this planet. 1. If mankind is to survive on this planet, wars of conquest must be outlawed. Wars based on religious beliefs and religious bigotry must cease.
2. The environment of this planet has been abused and we are dangerously close to extinction because of mankind's inability to stop the abuse. Global warming is fact and not fiction.
I request that I be allowed to address a joint session of the United States Congress at the first opportunity regarding off-world species that the United States government and the military have been in contact with together. Respectfully, RESPECT, John Titor II, Chief Executive Officer of the 177th Time Travel Division.
John Titor,
John Titor bitch to bitch and to vote to work it to the to folk to folk work it up broken to
Titor II's claims of being a lieutenant colonel in the 177th Time Traveling Division from the year 2036 is so juvenile and ridiculous. The original John Titor was a slow build, a calculated, steady approach, disseminating through multiple media sources and ultimately making for a more grounded ARG to unfold organically. John Titor II is not an ARG in my opinion. It's a poor attempt to cash in on a name which is not copyrighted. The idea that he alone has all the answers, which turn out to be completely false, by the way, is laughable. The contents of his letter are really just a collage of many of the popular ideas in science fiction and the occult and paranormal literature for decades. I don't really see anything new here. At any rate, here's his picture. John Titor II in the flesh. You'd at least think one would have to be in semi-decent shape for the rigors of traversing time. Does he look prepared to you? He looks like he's prepared to spend an afternoon watching minor league baseball while enjoying a case of Keystone Light and eating boiled hot dogs. Plain.
You know it, hippie. Hey, I always carry around a set of keys, a pocket knife, and some pep, just in case the year 2050 calls and needs my help again.
By the way, he also stated that his time travel device was conveniently
roughly the same size and shape as your average cell phone. Don't make me grab my device, boy. It's right there on my utility belt too, ne'er-do-well. That's fancy time traveler jargon for a worthless person like you, hippie. Can't wait for my flux puppy to be fixed so I can get back to 2000 again.
And why does he need camo? Let's start at the beginning. Titor mentions that he doesn't remember being born, which is fine. I don't think many of us can recall our entry into this world. However, his first memory seems to be waking up in 1979 as a 27-year-old man. It would later be conveyed to him by an alien friend that the reason for this lapse in memory was due to the fact he was a clone. Which reminds me, Titor II also claims Barack Obama is a clone, with implanted memories no less. His history continues from there, managing to tick all the usual trope boxes surrounding flying saucer lore and sci-fi. John Titor II allegedly began his military career at the secret underground USA Air Force Base at Dulce, New Mexico. Then went on to serve in the 177th Time Travel Division at Area 51. At that point, he then goes zipping around through time, saving the universe. This guy, alone, with nothing but a can of pepper spray, eventually retiring in the year 2036, where he immediately went back to the year 2000 to be with his sweetheart. Titor II, that still cracks me up. The real John Titor has to call himself Titor II. Why not go with the real Titor, or the real John Titor, or even Titor I, Titor Prime? Some say he remains a security nightmare to this day. Among many of his revelations are insights into our past, present, and future regarding continued involvement with UFOs. They are as follows.
The U.S. is in control of 2 off-world colonies. The U.S. military recognizes sovereignty of 3 alien species, the Greys, the Reptilians, and the Tall Whites, working with them for over 70 years.
And claims that all 3 are friendly.
The U.S. has a galactic army of cloned super soldiers.
He talks about being witness to the often cited Greys versus the military battle underground at Dulce. He's on board with the concept of the Mandela effect. He says he was there when JFK was shot, of course. And yeah, let's not forget the time he visited Nibiru, Planet X. Wow, you'd think with all this knowledge, the guy and his books would be a little more interesting. And here, for your enjoyment, are his predictions.
World War III will take place in the year 2018, which leads to millions perishing, and the U.S. President and his VP suffer severe radiation poisoning due to nuclear fallout. The attack was carried out by a Middle Eastern country, or Mexico.
He couldn't remember the details.
That's neither here nor there. The U.S. responds with such force as to destroy the rest of the planet.
But wait. Just in the nick of time, Titor and his team were on a mission which narrowly avoided that outcome. There's not much else to wring out of this dirty little dish towel. The Leonard Nimoy AI did bring something to my attention that he felt compelled that I include in my final edit. Titor II's tenuous connections with #TheGame23. Nimoy AI will narrate this Reddit exchange that he found so compelling.
Carlsbad Cavern 756 writes, "Is this a bad attempt at an ARG or is there something here? I came across it months ago from a fortune thread referencing John Titor, which I have yet to rediscover. And bringing up John Titor is a red flag for this being a bunch of BS, and it just seemed like a bunch of people posting random stuff and trying to make it seem like an ARG. It seems to be all over the internet in random places. And
Just made an account on the website, with fake info of course, and it's pretty similar to Facebook. Most of the posts are by a user called Adesixicodosiketodasic, which is just cicada but backwards and forwards, and it makes me think that it is someone trying to imitate mysterious internet stuff. And all of those posts that I have checked link to this Twitter.
There's also a subreddit with more random stuff about the Gamma 23. And I found this Facebook.
That uses the Game 23 hashtags. So it seems pretty random, and I'm not sure if there is or ever was any meaning to any of it, but what do you all think of it? Is it worth digging in at all?
Eddie the Daddy writes, wannabe leak hackso stuff. You know.
I don't know. It appears we have reached the end of John Titor II's little yarn. Nimoy AI is in talks with a number of interested parties about narration of Titor II's latest addition to the story. There still isn't an audiobook out of Continued, The Chronicles of John Titor II. It's an ebook published in 2017. Nimoy AI is also in negotiations for funding from PI Exchange regarding his involvement with the John Titor II miniseries, tentatively titled Titor on the Edge of Time. The John Titor II story, starring Cransberry O'Flynn, set to air on Silk Road Plus in late spring of 2026-ish.